Long ago, in the heart of Africa, there existed a peaceful world where humans and snakes lived side by side. These snakes were not the hissing, slithering creatures people feared today. They were friends, companions who shared in the joys of life. What made these snakes even more extraordinary was their ability to transform into humans. At will, they would shift, leaving behind their scaled forms to join humans in games, stories, and celebrations. Villages often saw people and snakes playing, laughing, and living together, their bond rooted in trust and mutual respect. But one fateful event shattered this harmony. One day, during a grand festival held in honor of this special relationship between humans and snakes, a mischievous human boy decided to test a forbidden legend. It was said that while snakes could turn into humans, if their snake form was wounded in transformation, they would suffer greatly. The boy, in a moment of cruel curiosity, cornered a young snake while it was shifting and struck it with a sharp stone, gravely injuring it. The snake screamed in pain as it reverted back to its snake form, permanently losing its ability to transform. Word spread quickly, and fear took root in both species. The trust was broken. Humans, realizing the snake's vulnerability, began to see them as threats or prey, while snakes felt betrayed by those they had called friends. In fear and anger, the snakes retreated deep into the forests, abandoning their human counterparts. Over time, they lost their ability to transform entirely, the skill fading from their species. Generations passed. The world of humans and snakes drifted further apart, with only whispers of their ancient bond echoing in forgotten tales. Among these stories was one about a young boy named Dimeji, the son of a skilled hunter. Curious and adventurous, Dimeji often accompanied his parents on hunting trips into the deep forest. He would sit by the fire at night, listening intently as his father told stories of the wilderness. But what fascinated him most were the legends of the snakes that once lived as humans. Meanwhile, in the depths of the forest, a young snake named Adisa lived with her family. Adisa was different from the other snakes. While most had long forgotten their ability to turn into humans, she was born with this ancient power, a rarity that hadn't been seen for centuries. Her parents, wary and fearful of humans, often warned her to stay away from them. They told her of the betrayal that had driven their kind into hiding, reminding her that humans could never be trusted. But Adisa was curious, and despite her parents' warnings, she often found herself wondering about humans and the world beyond the forest. On fateful day, Dimeji ventured deeper into the forest than ever before. While exploring, he stumbled upon a dangerous animal trap set by another hunter. As he tried to free himself, he found himself face to face with a ferocious animal that had been attracted by his struggle. Just as it seemed that he would be overcome, Adisa, who had been silently observing from the shadows, couldn't stand by any longer. In an instant, she transformed into her human form, a beautiful young girl, and fought off the animal, saving Dimeji's life. Dimeji fell unconscious from exhaustion, and Adisa, filled with curiosity, crouched beside him, studying the human boy she had just saved. She had heard so much about humans, yet this one seemed so different from the stories her parents had told her. She gently brushed his face, fascinated by his features. But as Dimeji stirred and began to wake, Adisa quickly retreated, disappearing into the forest before he could fully see her. When Dimeji woke, his mind was hazy. He recalled the danger, but more vividly, he remembered the face of a beautiful girl with dark, piercing eyes. It was strange she had been deep in the forest where no humans lived, yet he was sure he had seen her. Driven by the memory, Dimeji returned to the spot every day, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious girl who had saved him. Each time, he lingered, calling out softly into the trees, unaware that Adisa was always nearby, watching him from the shadows, torn between her curiosity and the warnings of her family. One day, after weeks of silently watching him, Adisa finally gathered the courage to approach. She emerged cautiously, appearing as a human girl, her movements hesitant and unsure. Dimeji's heart leapt as he saw her, the girl from his dreams and memory, the one who had saved him. Their first conversation was awkward, but full of curiosity. Dimeji asked who she was, and Adisa, wary of revealing her true nature, told him she was from a nearby village. Despite her guarded nature, Adisa found herself intrigued by Dimeji's genuine interest in her. He wasn't like the humans her parents warned her about. He was kind, gentle, and respectful of the forest. Each day, their conversations grew longer and more comfortable. They talked about their worlds. Dimeji shared tales of his father's hunting and the village life, while Adisa, careful not to reveal her true origins, spoke of the beauty and mysteries of the forest. As time passed, they met at the forest's edge regularly. Adisa would come to the outskirts of the village in her human form, eager to see Dimeji, and their bond deepened. Though still wary of humans, Adisa couldn't deny the connection she felt with him. Dimeji, for his part, became more and more fascinated by her. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, her knowledge of the forest so vast and her presence so calming. It had been years since Adisa and Dimeji first met in the forest. Their bond had only deepened, and while Adisa always kept her guard up around him, the weight of her secret grew heavier with each passing day. She loved him deeply, but feared that one mistake could shatter everything they had built. One evening, after spending the day together at their usual meeting place on the outskirts of the village, a sudden storm rolled in. The sky darkened quickly, and heavy rain began to fall. Dimeji suggested they find shelter, and the two ran together deeper into the forest, laughing as they sought refuge under the canopy of a massive tree. The rain was pouring down in torrents, and both of them were drenched, but the shared moment felt like an adventure. As the storm continued to rage, Dimeji gathered firewood to make a small fire. He handed Adisa his cloak to warm herself while he tried to get the fire started. The fire crackled, and the warmth slowly began to fill the space. Adisa, however, was visibly uneasy. The rainwater, now dripping off her soaked clothing, was causing an unsettling reaction within her. She could feel a strange tingling across her skin, something that only happened when she was about to involuntarily transform. Panic gripped her, but she tried to remain calm, hoping the sensation would pass. She wrapped herself tightly in the cloak, but the tingling intensified. Her heart raced, and without warning, her legs began to shift into her snake form beneath the cloak. Horrified, she instinctively pulled the cloak tighter, hiding her transformation from Dimeji, but she knew she couldn't control it much longer. Dimeji, unaware of what was happening, continued talking, recounting stories of his hunts and asking her about her life in the neighboring village. Adisa was barely listening. She needed to escape, to find a way out before Dimeji could see her. But just as she was about to make an excuse to leave, Dimeji, sensing her discomfort, asked, "Adisa, are you all right? You look pale." Before she could respond, a strong gust of wind blew through the forest, sending a wave of rainwater crashing down from the tree branches. The sudden shock caused Adisa to lose her concentration completely. The cloak slipped from her grip, and in an instant, Dimeji's eyes widened as he saw what was happening. Her lower half had transformed into a snake. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Dimeji stared, his mind racing to comprehend what he was seeing. Adisa, frozen with fear, could feel her heart breaking. The secret she had kept for so long had finally been revealed, and now everything she had feared would come true. I can explain," Adisa stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Dimeji didn't move. He wasn't afraid, just shocked, trying to process the impossible. The girl he had grown up with, the girl he loved, wasn't entirely human. "Adisa," Dimeji said slowly, "you're a snake?" Tears filled Adisa's eyes as she looked away, ashamed. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I was going to tell you one day, but I was scared." Dimeji crouched down beside her, his gaze softening. "Scared? Why would you be scared of me?" "Because humans, they hate my kind. My parents told me never to trust humans. They say you would never understand, that you would fear me." Dimeji was silent for a moment, but then he gently reached for her hand. "Adisa, you saved my life once, remember? From that moment, I knew you were special. I don't care what you are. Snake or human, it doesn't change how I feel about you. Adisa's eyes searched his face, filled with a mix of surprise and disbelief. You don't think I'm a monster? Of course not, Dimeji said, squeezing her hand. You've always been the same Adisa, the one I care about, the one I trust. Relief washed over Adisa, and she allowed herself to breathe again. Slowly, she began to revert back to her full human form, the snake features fading away. She had never imagined Dimeji would accept her so easily, but here he was, standing by her side. Please, she said softly, don't tell anyone. My parents, the other snakes, they would never forgive me if they knew a human found out. Dimeji nodded, his expression serious. Your secret is safe with me, Adisa. I promise. No one will ever know. From that moment on, their bond grew even stronger. They had always shared a deep connection, but now there was no longer a wall of secrets between them. Dimeji's loyalty and love for Adisa only deepened, and she, in turn, trusted him more than ever before. They knew, however, that their relationship would have to remain hidden from both humans and snakes. As the seasons changed and the years passed, Adisa grew into a stunningly beautiful young woman. Her beauty was otherworldly, her dark brown skin glowing in the sunlight, her long black hair flowing like a river, and her amber eyes holding the mystery of her snake lineage. Whenever she walked through the forest or stood at the outskirts of the village, people would notice her, captivated by her grace and elegance. Despite the growing attention from others, Adisa only had eyes for Dimeji. Their bond had only deepened since the night of her revelation. While Dimeji had accepted her true nature without hesitation, they both knew the dangers of letting anyone else discover the truth. To the villagers, Adisa remained a mysterious but charming girl from a neighboring village. She made regular trips to the market, fascinated by human life. On market days, Adisa would visit the village to gather supplies. The villagers admired her beauty and her kindness, and many young men took notice, vying for her attention. They would offer her gifts or try to engage her in conversation, but Adisa always politely refused. Her heart belonged to Dimeji, and though no one could see the depth of their relationship, it was undeniable to her. Among the many men who sought her favor was a powerful warrior chief named Balagun. Balagun was a man of strength and pride, known for his fiery temper and insatiable desire to possess anything that caught his eye. The moment he laid eyes on Adisa at the market, he was determined to make her his. He approached her with confidence, convinced that no one could resist his charm and power. Adisa, Balogan said as he stood before her, I have heard much about you. A beauty like yours belongs by the side of a strong man. I can give you wealth, protection, and everything you desire. You will be treated like a queen if you come with me. Adisa met his gaze, her expression calm but firm. Thank you for your offer, Balogan, but I am not interested. I already have everything I need. Balogan's smile faltered, and his eyes darkened with frustration. You refuse me? He said, his voice laced with disbelief. Do you know who I am? I do, Adisa replied, her tone unwavering, but my answer remains the same. Balogan's pride was wounded, and his face twisted with anger. You will regret this, he hissed. No one defies me. As Adisa walked away, Balogan watched her with growing resentment. He could not bear the thought of being rejected, especially by someone he desired so deeply. Fueled by his rage, he decided that if Adisa would not come to him willingly, he would find another way to claim her. In secret, Balogan ordered his most loyal servants to follow Adisa whenever she left the village. Watch her every move, he commanded. I want to know everything about her, where she goes, who she meets. She hides something, and I will uncover her secret. For days, Balogan's men followed Adisa, carefully keeping their distance as she made her way through the forest. They were patient, watching for any sign of vulnerability. One evening, after returning from the market, Adisa made her way back to the familiar paths that led deeper into the forest. Unbeknownst to her, Balogan's men were close behind, hidden among the trees. As she neared the secluded part of the forest, Adisa felt a sense of relief. She was alone again, free from the prying eyes of the village. Confident that no one was watching, she allowed her body to relax, and in an instant, she began to shift back into her snake form. Her legs merged into a long, shimmering tail, her skin taking on the familiar emerald green scales with golden and black patterns. She slithered deeper into the woods, unaware that Balogan's men had seen everything. Terrified by what they had witnessed, the men rushed back to Balogan's compound. "Chief!" they cried. She's a snake. She turned into a snake right before our eyes." Balogan's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "So that's her secret," he muttered. "She's not just a woman, she's a creature, a monster." The next day, in the bustling market square, Adisa moved among the villagers, happily greeting people as she passed. She had no idea that Balogan was already waiting for her. As she laughed and chatted with the market women, Balogan stormed into the square, his voice booming. "There she is," he shouted, pointing at Adisa. "The snake! The deceiver!" The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning toward Adisa in confusion and shock. "What are you talking about?" one of the villagers asked. "She is not human!" Balogan bellowed, striding toward her with a triumphant smirk. "This girl, who you think is one of us, is nothing but a snake in disguise. I have proof." Adisa's heart pounded in her chest, her eyes wide with fear. She tried to back away, but Balogan was too quick. He reached into his robe and pulled out a vial of enchanted liquid. Before anyone could stop him, he threw the liquid at her. The magic hit her skin, and to her horror, her transformation began. Her legs fusing together, her scales appearing in front of everyone. The villagers gasped in terror, and some began to scream. "A snake! She's a snake!" Adisa tried to cover herself, but it was too late. Her secret had been revealed. Balogan's men rushed forward, throwing a heavy net over her before she could escape. She thrashed in panic, trying to break free, but the net was enchanted to suppress her powers. Balogan grinned as he watched her struggle, his victory complete. "You thought you could deceive us," he said coldly, stepping closer to the trapped Adisa. "But now, the whole village knows what you really are. I will keep you as my prisoner, a reminder to all of what happens to creatures who try to live among men." The villagers watched in stunned silence as Balogan's men dragged Adisa away, her pleas for help falling on deaf ears. She was taken to Balogan's compound and locked in a dark room, where she remained imprisoned, her powers suppressed by the enchanted net. Upon hearing the news of Adisa's capture, Dimeji felt his heart drop. He knew Balogan's reputation and the lengths the warrior chief would go to if he felt his pride was challenged. Without hesitation, Dimeji made his way to Balogan's compound, determined to plead for Adisa's release. He walked through the village, his mind racing, recalling every moment he had shared with her, the laughter, the quiet moments, the secret smiles. He couldn't bear the thought of her suffering. As he approached the entrance to Balogan's compound, 2 guards stopped him. Dimeji lifted his chin, summoning all the courage he could muster. "I need to see Balogan," he said firmly. "It's about the girl he's captured." The guards eyed him suspiciously, but stepped aside, and soon Dimeji was led into the grand hall where Balogan sat, a smug smile spreading across his face as he saw Dimeji enter. "Well, well, if it isn't the young hunter's son," Balogan sneered, reclining back on his throne. "What brings you here? Come to see the snake in my cage?" "Balogan," Dimeji began, his voice steady but respectful. "I've come to speak to you about Adisa. I beg you to release her. She has never harmed anyone. She is kind and gentle, and she poses no threat to anyone in the village." Balogan's eyes darkened. "Kind? Gentle?" He laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the hall. "Do you know what she truly is? She is a snake, a creature of deceit hiding in plain sight among us. How could you possibly defend such a monster?" "She is no monster," Dimeji replied, his tone resolute. I have known her for years. She has saved my life and shown me nothing but kindness. She has never once harmed anyone, and she has kept her secret to protect herself and others. I beg you, please, let her go." Balogan's face twisted with rage. "You are a fool, boy. You have been bewitched by her lies. I will not release her. In fact, I will show the entire village her true form, so they know the kind of creatures lurking among us." "Please, Balogan," Dimeji pleaded, stepping forward. "I am not bewitched, only speaking the truth. Adisa has never brought harm to anyone, and if you have her killed, you will be shedding innocent blood." Balogan scowled, his patience wearing thin. He nodded to his guards. "Enough of this nonsense. Teach him a lesson in respect." The guards seized Dimeji, dragging him outside. Before he could react, they struck him, sending him sprawling onto the ground. He felt fists and boots strike his body as they beat him without mercy. Balogan's laughter echoed in his ears as the guards finally released him, leaving him bruised and bloodied at the edge of the compound. Stumbling to his feet, Dimeji forced himself to walk home. He couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Adisa's face, imagined her alone and scared, held captive by Balogan. He knew he couldn't give up on her. She needed him, and he would not let her suffer alone. As the first light of dawn broke, Dimeji made a decision. He would seek help from the elder snakes, Adisa's family. He knew it was a risk, but he had no other choice. If anyone could help him free Adisa, it was them. With renewed determination, he set out into the forest, moving swiftly and quietly. After hours of searching, he arrived at the sacred clearing where he had first met Adisa. He called out, his voice carrying through the trees. "Please, I need your help. I am a friend of Adisa. I beg you, come to me." For a moment, there was only silence. Then slowly, the elder snakes emerged from the shadows, their eyes wary and distrustful. The largest of them, a serpent with deep emerald scales and piercing amber eyes, coiled before him, its gaze unblinking. "You seek us, human?" The elder snake spoke, his voice low and commanding. "Why do you come here, knowing what we are?" "I come because I need your help," Dimeji said, his voice unwavering. "Adisa has been captured by a man from my village. He plans to harm her, and I cannot let that happen." The elder snake narrowed his eyes. "Why should we trust you? Humans have brought us nothing but pain. They drove us from the land, forced us into hiding. You are no different." Dimeji took a deep breath. "I understand your mistrust, and I cannot change the past. But Adisa saved my life once, and I owe her everything. She is not just a friend to me, she is the one I cherish most in this world. I will do anything to protect her. If you help me, I promise I will protect you and your family from any harm." The elder snake considered his words, his gaze shifting to the other snakes who murmured among themselves. Finally, he turned back to Dimeji. "You speak with a sincerity I have not heard in a human for many years," he said. "Very well. We will help you, but know this. If you betray us, we will not show mercy." Dimeji nodded. "I understand. Thank you. I will not betray you. Now please, tell me what I must do." The elder snake slithered closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "We shall come to Balogan's compound tonight, but you must find a way to distract him and his guards, so that we may enter undetected. When the time comes, call out to us. We will do the rest." Dimeji bowed, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you. I will not fail you." That evening, as dusk settled over the village, Dimeji approached Balogan's compound once more. This time, he moved with purpose, keeping to the shadows. He knew that if he could draw the guards away, the snakes would have a chance to free Adisa. He quietly set fire to a nearby pile of leaves, allowing the smoke to billow and drift towards the compound. As the smoke thickened, the guards spotted the flames and rushed to put them out, shouting and scrambling to contain the blaze. Seizing the opportunity, Dimeji crept through the chaos, making his way to the back of the compound where Adisa was being held. He called out softly, "Adisa, it's me. I'm here to help you." "Dimeji." Adisa's voice was weak but filled with hope. How did you— Shh, he whispered, glancing back to ensure no one was nearby. I've come with help. I need you to hold on just a bit longer. He called out just as the elder snake had instructed. Within moments, the snakes emerged, slithering silently into the compound, their scales glinting in the firelight. They moved with swift, practiced efficiency, wrapping themselves around the bars of Adisa's cage, breaking them apart with surprising strength. With the cage destroyed, Adisa emerged, her form shifting back into the girl Dimeji had always known. She threw her arms around him, tears of relief streaming down her face. I thought I'd never see you again. After Dimeji and the elder snakes freed Adisa from her captivity in Balogan's compound, they fled, hoping to escape unnoticed. But Balogan, having anticipated such a rescue, quickly rallied his warriors. His anger was palpable, and he was determined not to let them go easily. As Dimeji and Adisa reached the edge of the forest, they found themselves cornered by Balogun and his men, who surrounded them with weapons drawn, eyes filled with malice. Balogun sneered, pointing his spear toward Dimeji. You dare defy me, boy? You think you can take this creature and make a fool of me? I will end this farce now. Dimeji stood protectively in front of Adisa, his fists clenched, determined to defend her with his life if he had to. But as Balogun's men advanced, a soft hissing sound rose from the undergrowth, growing louder until it filled the air around them. From the shadows, dozens of snakes emerged, slithering silently but purposefully, their scales glinting under the moonlight. The elder snakes, led by Adisa's parents, took their places beside Dimeji and Adisa, forming a united front. The largest of the elder snakes, Adisa's father, raised his head, his amber eyes glaring at Balogun. Enough of this hatred, Balogun, he hissed, his voice resonating with ancient authority. Your cruelty has already caused much suffering. This ends now. Balogun's eyes widened, fear flashing across his face as the snakes advanced, their sheer numbers and strength overwhelming him and his men. The warriors hesitated, their weapons trembling in their hands as they began to realize the futility of their struggle. Seeing the might of the snakes and their alliance with Dimeji, Balogun's arrogance faltered. The realization struck him that his greed and cruelty had brought nothing but disaster. Humiliated and defeated, he threw down his weapon and ordered his men to retreat, their once defiant stances now shadows of fear and regret. In the days that followed, news of Dimeji's bravery and the rescue of Adisa spread throughout the village and beyond. The villagers, who had long feared the snakes, began to see them in a new light. Stories surfaced about the ancient betrayal that had driven the snakes away, and the villagers began to understand that it was their ancestors who had first broken the trust. Through Dimeji's courage and love for Adisa, the village saw an opportunity for peace and reconciliation. Dimeji and Adisa, recognizing the importance of this newfound alliance, decided to marry, sealing a bond that would bridge the gap between humans and snakes, symbolizing a union of trust and respect. The wedding was a grand affair, held at the edge of the forest where the village met the wilderness, marking a sacred place of unity. Humans and snakes alike gathered to celebrate, a powerful sight as two species that had once been divided stood together. As the ceremony proceeded, Adisa stood beside Dimeji, her radiant beauty captivating all who witnessed. Her eyes, filled with love and gratitude, met Dimeji's as they exchanged vows of commitment and respect. The elder snakes bestowed blessings upon the couple, and the village elders followed suit, proclaiming a new era of peace and understanding. One of the village elders, a wise woman, stepped forward addressing the crowd. Today we witness the healing of old wounds. May this marriage mark the beginning of a new chapter where humans and snakes no longer fear one another, but walk together as friends and allies. With their marriage, the distrust that had festered for generations began to heal. From that day forward, humans and snakes lived in harmony once more. The forest, once feared as a place of danger, transformed into a symbol of unity and trust. Where humans and snakes walked together, just as they had in ancient times. Dimeji and Adisa's love story became legend, passed down through the generations as a reminder that trust, love, and courage can heal even the deepest wounds. They lived together as guardians of the forest, ensuring that the bond between humans and snakes would remain strong, a legacy of peace that would endure for all time.